Now, people with red hair, not me, make up around 2% of the world's population. It's fair to say they are subjected to more than their fair share of mickey-taking, and many people think that ginger jokes or gingers amounts to bullying or worse. But could we be seeing a resurgence of the redhead? This year there have been events to celebrate flame-haired folk in the Netherlands and Scotland. Well, here in London, an exhibition to dispel stereotypes about people with red hair has just opened. And I'm joined now by the photographer and proud redhead Thomas Knights, whose work you can see in the screens behind me, and by Ross Hendry. He's chair of the Anti-Bullying Alliance. Welcome to you both. Thank you very much indeed. So have you come in for stick because of the colour of your hair?
Well, I know my actual hair has now got darker, so I feel a bit of a hypocrite, really, because I'm sort of talking about this from the first-person perspective, and everyone thinks, actually, I'm not really ginger, but I think it's actually just got darker over the years, because I was actually quite like this guy in the end when I was growing up. And
when you were growing up,
I never felt like I really got very much stick now looking back, having done the exhibition, because some of the stories I've been told from the guys has been quite full on.
Like what?
Well, I mean, I had a guy write to me and say that he's just. I feel awful talking about it, because he was saying he was sort of beaten and kicked, and he had to, you know, forced
just because he had red hair.
Yeah, just because he had red hair, he was singled out by groups of people at his school, and he's slightly older, and I think the sort of. From what I'm seeing, a slightly older generation seems to have had it worse, and there's like a younger sort of new thinking that it's actually okay and it's cool. Like some of the younger models from this exhibition, they're like, no, I've always been all right with it. You know, they're about sort of 19, 20, but sort of, you know, 30, 40, 50-year-olds have a slightly different story. So,
Ross, have you come across much of this?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Anti-Bullying Alliance is an alliance of lots of charities that work with children and young people who face bullying. Lots of those charities say that it's something that they encounter every day. There are organisations like Diana Ward's Kidscape who say that it is one of their most common issues that sort of get raised with them. I think it is fair to say, though, that bullying generally, I mean, whilst people will pick on somebody for red hair, if it's not red hair, they'll often sort of turn to something else. Yeah. And so it's really important to sort of address the bullying issue rather than just say it's a thing about red hair. And
but I'm going to say, if you're at a school and the 15 or 16-year-old red-headed boy who's 6'5" and built like, you know, whatever, now who's going to bully him?
Well, totally, there is an argument for that. But, you know, I think it goes beyond just the sort of a vulnerable and, say, maybe slightly physically weaker character that is only the person that gets picked on. I think in our culture, especially in England, we have a problem. Well, not a problem. The laddish culture. The reason why I'm doing this for boys is because there's this laddish culture of banter. So you have the locker room sort of jokes, and I think.
What are the jokes?
But my point is, though, with it is that it's all said in jest, but then boys find it difficult to then bring up. If they kind of feel actually it's going a little bit deeper, it's hard to bring it up with their mates, because, you know, it's the whole, oh, you can't take a joke, mate, kind of thing. So so there's that element of it that has allowed this sort of culture to fester.
Hang on, isn't there a difference between teasing?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Pulling your leg and bullying, which is much more menacing.
One of the things that we do quite a lot of work on is actually defining what bullying means and what the difference between taking the mick, having a bit of a joke between friends, and what is bullying. Bullying has three elements. It's repetitive, it's intentional, and there's a power imbalance between two parties or two individuals. And you have to have all three for something to be bullying, and so to be elevated from just taking the mick from somebody. Because if it's intentional and repetitive, but also there's a power imbalance there, that person who's weaker in that relationship is really uncomfortable, is often sort of under psychological pressure or emotionally tormented, and it's very difficult for them to say stop. And when they do say stop, they're not listened to. So you have to have all three elements, I think, for it to be bullying.
I think the other thing with this is that it's really not taken seriously as a kind of genuine concern. So
should it be?
I think it should. I mean, it's the fact is that we're talking about hair colour, and I think people therefore kind of talk about it with a bit of a snigger and a bit of a smile, but actually. You know, it is actually it's an innate part of these people's character and who they are, and actually. You know, yes, you can dye your hair, and that's what a lot of people do, but ultimately they get to a point where they're like, you know, I don't want to be doing this anymore. I don't want to feel ashamed of who I am. So they, you know, eventually become sort of confident enough to then be proud and be ginger. It seems so funny even talking about it. It seems so funny that we should be having this conversation, but that's the kind of the situation we're in the UK, especially America, Canada, Australia. Places like France, Spain, South America, they love the red hair.
Damian Lewis in Homeland, you know, red
well,
hair,
he's the first ever redhead leading man in a Hollywood
miniseries or whatever,
ever. And if you go past Damian Lewis in Hollywood, who else can you name who's a famous leading man, sort of redhead? And even in the Homeland series, he plays this sort of ambiguous, is he or isn't he a baddie? And that's the other sort of stereotypical character for redheads to play in Hollywood, is the baddie. If not the kind of undesirable or the weak character, it's the baddie, or the angry character.
I was just going to say, I mean, there are two elements to this. I think it was really interesting that Thomas said it's something that the older generation have suffered more than the younger generation. I think there's great work going on in primary schools at the minute. We've just celebrated Anti-Bullying Week at the end of November. There's lots of work going on where children, for example, I've been at a school where children write down an exercise of saying, what's different about me? And they write that down, and then if they all go swapping it with somebody else, and actually you have to adopt there's something different about somebody else and say why you're proud and how that makes you feel. And I think that's celebrating that difference. It's not just sort of putting up with it or banning something. It's actually sort of getting young people and children to learn how to celebrate the differences in one another.
And I think also, I just want to add very quickly. At the exhibition, the Red Hot exhibition, we're trying to dispel this whole myth by presenting ginger men in a positive and heroic way, rather than the sort of stereotype we see in media.
OK, both of you, thank you very much
thank
indeed for being with us. Just to say that whether you be auburn, brunette, rusty-coloured hair, mousy, really red, do let me know on Twitter what you think. I'm at BBC Jon Sopel, and you can see what we're working on via our Facebook page as well.